Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Carissa Saint Laurent. Do you pronounce it in the French way?
Ooh, no, but I like when it's pronounced in the French way.
Yeah. I did like 8 years of French at school, and we did very little spoken French, but it was
Same.
subjunctives and strange vocabulary that you're never going to use. But yeah, I can say Carissa Saint Laurent.
Right, a croissant or get the accent down. I had the same experience with French that, I can barely say hello, my name is, but yeah, I spent so many years. I don't think we went through the right kind of language schooling.
No, it's a strange one, isn't it? And they're like I remember. I think one of my first trips to my second trip to France on my own. I was with a friend, and we went to this restaurant, and we obviously were talking English, and you could feel the eyes on us, the French eyes on us. We were English, and we were invading their restaurant. And then when the guy brought the guy brought the menu, and I ordered some drinks and appetizers or whatever it was in French, then they all looked away again. It was okay because I spoke enough French to order the stuff. They're a strange nation. Well, I guess we've all got our idiosyncrasies, especially
In our own ways, yes.
in our way. So, Carissa is a fellow adoptee, and she's you've got a day job in rainwater installation, installing rainwater systems. Sorry, your company. Yeah, I guess you do the marketing around that.
Yes, yeah. So I'm the VP of Marketing and Business Development for a company called Heartwater, and we currently have a bottled water product that's bottled and purified rainwater, and we are moving this year into doing rainwater installations so that commercial businesses and buildings, as well as residential developments, can capture and purify their own water.
Brilliant. And you're also, would you describe yourself as a coach? Or
yeah. It's a tough one. I know it's the term that I think is most common for people to use. I don't consider myself that. I consider myself more of a guide.
A guide, okay.
And that to me, as just terminology, feels more suited. I teach, I guide, I help lead people to their deepest selves and to their soul. And coaching seems a little, to me, a bit external, even though, coaches and do incredible work. I know many coaches, people who call themselves coaches, and do absolutely beautiful, incredible internal work. Just for me personally, that particular title doesn't suit.
Doesn't run for you. So one of the things that lit me up on your website, and as always, listeners, there's links to the guest's website in the show notes, links to Carissa's website, and you say, I help you transform your life into one of greater meaning, higher purpose, and true joy. And I thought, like, who doesn't want that, right? Who doesn't want that? And for an adoptee to be in that, I don't think there's many adoptees in that sort of space, right?
Yeah, well,
me that I've not stumbled across them.
I've certainly met those who aren't, but I think that's true of a large swath of our population, sadly, that a lot of people struggle with finding joy, like real true joy. And why I say true joy is because it to me, it differs from happiness. Happiness is fleeting. Happiness can be attained through instant gratification. Happiness can, come in these moments. Joy, however, is a more full body and holistic kind of experience to me, as I define it. And I think a lot of people struggle to experience that.
Yeah.
My journey has been in finding that joy within myself, that state of joy within myself through having greater meaning and a higher purpose, or at least living into the greater meaning and higher purpose that I've been given and that we all have. And that has been a discovery process. You know, it's
Yeah.
actually my 50th birthday today. And
Oh, happy birthday.
thank you. And I wrote a little ebook called 50 Years Around the Sun, sharing lessons that I've picked up along the way, because it's been a struggle. And I don't think that's necessarily only for adoptees, certainly, but we as adoptees have, I would say, a shared and added struggle of identity, of really trying to figure out who we are in this world. Now, I think all kids, teenagers go through that, like, who am I phase, right? Who am I? What am I? You know, and then you try on all sorts of different outfits, and maybe you're like, I'm going to be punk this year, and then next year or 2 years down the road, you're a hippie or whatever. And, you know, people try on a lot of different identities in order to figure out who they are and to kind of come into that comfort, be in their own skin and explore a lot of different things. But typically that exploration, and the wider that exploration goes, happens because we're not already comfortable in our own skin. We don't yet know who we are. And they're being raised by a family that, for me, was clearly not my family, because I'm a Korean born person. My family is white. No one had to tell me that I was not the same as my family, because it was just very apparent. And so, and also in the community I grew up in, a small town in New Hampshire, and everybody around me was the same as them and completely different from me. So that added layer of identity struggle that I think a lot of not only transracial adoptees, but then adoptees who may even be the same race as their family, that shared experience that we go through is, it's the, I guess it's our struggle. It's our thing. Now, you could take another group, another subculture group. Maybe it's people who are suffering from, maybe not suffering, but maybe they're people who have Down syndrome, right? They're their own, subculture of people who are being looked at a particular way, have their own particular struggles, et cetera. So every single group has identity struggles, I think. Ours, however, at least for me, being a transracial adoptee, it's like I didn't have anybody else around me who could share in that struggle with me or help me through it. Whereas I think in other subcultures, it's like, oh, you can find your other people, or you have, those groups that you can form or join with. And I think it's an important thing. And I didn't really identify as a Korean adoptee until my later adulthood,
Yeah.
honestly. It's like I didn't want to see myself in that way. So I stayed out of that subculture. And it was such a warm embrace when I finally entered into that group to experience other people who were really truly like me, because other Koreans aren't like me. Other white people aren't like me, even though I feel that way inside. And then, so to be in a room of other Koreans who identify usually as white, because most Koreans get adopted into white cultures, to be in that kind of subgroup is so unique and so, just like I said, a warm embrace, just like finally seeing yourself and feeling seen.
Yeah. So We've got two different dynamics going on here. We're talking about kind of like outside and the warmth of the embrace, and then going in on ourselves to find our deeper selves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that most of us search externally for whatever we're lacking and feel that is a void in our lives. So if it's an identity struggle, or if it is a lack of a mother connection, or it is the lack of security and safety because you were taken from your birth mother, typically, right, at an early age, even before you may not even remember it. We suffer from these losses that become voids within that often are filled, or at least attempted to be filled, with external validation. So it might be external validation through a group or through this identity, like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to identify as a Korean adoptee. I'm going to identify as a goth and become part of this like goth community, and they're going to accept me, and I'm going to, feel into that. So oftentimes we externalize all of that in order to fulfill that void and that lack. And then people do it through their roles and their other identities, right? The career is a big one, where people step into their career shoes. Maybe it's an academic path, or it's a professional path, or it's something that they spend and dedicate a lifetime to, in order to not only accomplish whatever that thing is, but to feel worthy, to feel valued in society, or to feel accepted into a group.
Yeah.
And so all of those things, I mean, and those are all, I would say, have a positive spin to them. But then, of course, there's the same external stuff that can consume you, material possessions and your pursuit of those material possessions, addictions to your devices, or to alcohol, or to other things outside of us. Those which have more negative consequences can also fulfill something. I mean, they are filling a void. And when I talk to people about something that is more negatively impacting their life, something that has become addictive, because most things that are addictive, we could argue that most of them are pretty okay, as in slight moderation, or not overused, or right. Your iPhone, it's not evil. It's just when you lose yourself in it, and that's all you do is spend time in your phone, and you're consumed by it, and you're not having real conversations in the world, then of course it's consumed you. Now it is an addiction, and it's a problem. So when I talk to people about anything like that, that is an externalized band-aid, or an externalized means to fill the void, then it's of course talking about, well, why the void? What's lacking? What are you missing? And for adoptees, it's often a feeling of safety and security, a feeling of worthiness and value, because we were given up, quote unquote, right? We were even, and as much as you can intellectualize that as, well, my birth mother was a single mom, and she was destitute, or she died, or there was no one else to take care of. And we can drum up all the excuses, or all the reasons why that parent had to do that thing. It doesn't change the experience that we had as that infant, toddler, child, of that loss and of that experience. And so we're dealing with two different things again, where we can, as an adult, intellectualize it, be like, oh yeah, this all happened and was meant to be, etc. And now, but what did that do to our internal structure, our mental emotional state? So the process of going within, to me, is is necessary. I mean, to me, it is life. It is what we're here to do, to go within, to uncover and unmask what we've been covering up and masking, to figure out, what are those voids that we've been trying to fill and stuff with other things, and give ourselves back all of that we needed at those different times as we are being raised, but then ultimately what we need as a human on this planet, which is to feel like we have a sense of meaning and that we have a higher purpose here. And that to me is the ultimate goal of for all of us, adoptee or not.
Yeah. So you talked about I think last time we spoke, you talked about going back to our soul. Is that something that you would say?
That's definitely something I would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Going back to our soul. So do you think our souls are damaged by adoption?
No, I believe our souls are pure and intact and can't be damaged. They are a pure emanation of the divine. And what happens, I believe, is that through life experience, it just gets covered up. The soul gets veiled or tarnished a bit, however, whatever analogy you want to cook up in your mind, but it gets covered, and blocked from us experiencing the fullness of our soul, the truth of who we are. So life will do that, but not damage the actual soul. It will trick us into believing that we're nothing more than our experiences, or even nothing more than how a parent spoke to us, or nothing more than how a teacher treated us, or nothing more, right? I mean, so much of us get caught, or we can often get caught in these loops of, oh, I am as worthy or valuable as someone treated you. And I mean, that's just bananas, right? We are innately a miracle. And when we start to see ourselves that way, that we are not only a miracle of human life, but a miracle of a soul and a body living out this human experience, then we get to step out beyond those life experiences and look past them. It's not that we ignore them. It's not that we bypass them. We actually look deeply into them, but then see that they are not what makes us us. They are pieces of our story. They created aspects of our personality. They created who we are as a character, but not who we are as a soul.
Okay. So what's the difference between, because I'm totally agree with you, right? I'm like, when we spoke on this subject, whenever it was, last month before, I thought, this is it, right? Corissa and I are as one on this, right? I am totally with you, right? I'm just playing devil's advocate, because I don't find some of the people that I interview on the show would have a really hard time believing that, even getting it intellectually, right? Mm-hmm. So you one of the things that you said, one of the words that I really liked was, you said that we've been tricked. We've been, I think you said, we've been tricked into believing we're our experience, or we've been tricked into believing we are what other people say about us. So we're tricked. And I thought that's a fruitful area to explore, because how do we see through? How do we become untricked? I was thinking about a trick, like a magic trick. So you use the word veil, right? a veil. I'm thinking like a veil, like when the magician's got a top hat, and there's and he puts a piece of cloth over it, and he taps it with his magic wand, and then a bunny appears, right? It's like how that the bunny has been revealed, right? But he's done that through a trick. So how do we see through the trick of believing that we are primarily wounded, for example, or believing that we are our trauma defines us? Because those are the two things. So I'm with you. I don't believe our soul is damaged, touched in any way, harmed in any way by being adopted. I don't believe that anybody's life experience damages their soul. But an adoptee will come back and say, no, but we're primarily wounded. No, but we've been through our trauma. How do you what's the word?
Reconcile. Yeah. Well, I believe that our wounding is positive, and that's going to probably trigger some people. But I when looking at a soul's journey and what I believe is going on here in the world, where our soul, or what we could maybe call our energy, if that's more comfortable for people, the energetic makeup of who we are, that the person within that has an objectivity, right, can actually experience yourself. Like, you can step out of and experience who you are. Now, some people may not have ever had that experience of being able to actually step outside of themselves and observe themselves. But I would venture to say that most of us have had an objective thought about ourselves, of where you go, who's thinking that thing about me? If it's not me that is in this moment, and I'm having another thought about that experience, then who's that's having that thought, right? I mean, we have these different, at least two different aspects of ourselves. I venture to say many more, because those different aspects are our soul's full experience of where we've been, where we've journeyed, and what we've brought into this particular lifetime. And we are here experiencing this. So I don't mean to say that your wounding, your abandonment, your rejection, your trauma doesn't impact you and make you who you are in this lifetime, but it's not the only thing that makes you who you are. It is part of why anybody who's experienced that, are here on this planet at this moment, experiencing that thing, so that we can learn from it, so that we can experience something that, whether we needed to, if you want to believe in the karma aspect of, we needed to learn this lesson because we maybe inflicted this on someone in the past, or if it's just part of our whole evolution as a being, that we experience all things. We end up experiencing all things on our journey. And this is the lifetime that we're experiencing abandonment and loss and rejection. So to me, it's positive, because we take that experience and we grow from it. We expand our hearts from it. We actually connect more to humanity through it. I mean, look at what you're doing with this podcast. I don't think you would have started this podcast had you not had your own crisis of identity and abandonment and loss that you experienced, through your story. And now look what you're doing. You're reaching into the hearts and into the souls of others to hopefully help them along their journey in some way. So we all have that opportunity to do that. It's just whether or not you choose, because we also have free will. So you can choose to either sit and be just stuck in the the pain and the hurt and the what we will call like that primary wound, that initial impact of that thing, and just continue to relive it. Or you can accept that it happened and evolve from it and learn about all of life through that experience and become just richer through it all.
I'm a simple guy, like I'm a bit reductionist, right? So I want to take away, and I'm always trying to finesse my language and shrink it down, make it more condensed and more precise, right? So let me take a guess, and let me take a go at how I describe that, and then let's take it. I'd love to hear what you say about that. So in terms of the primal wound. So I would say, okay, so what has been wounded by the primal wound? Okay, so the primal wound has wounded my feelings, right? So insecurity, for example, insecurity, fragility, maybe sensitivity, or fear of abandonment. Right? So that's what I say has been wounded. And then from that, I would say, yes, I have felt all those feelings. Those feelings come and go, and those feelings are not my soul, right? So there's two different things. Feelings are not who we are. And so if we take soul soul being our essence, I would say that then the primal wound and therefore and trauma, I'd use the two things kind of interchangeably. I would say I'd use the word veil as well. So I would say the primal wound and and trauma have veiled who we are. They haven't changed who we are. So the soul is intact, but the feelings have been hurt. And also if you were to push me further again, I would say our sense of self. And then I would say, well, there's a big difference between our sense of self, and another word for sense of self is ego. Our ego isn't who we are. Our ego and our souls are two completely different things.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, the mental constructs that we create are so powerful. I mean, if you were to, yes, the feelings, and oftentimes people don't even get to their feelings. They're stuck in their minds and they're in their heads about it. They retell this story. I was abandoned. I was not wanted. I was rejected. No one wanted me. Right. And even if you don't consciously say those things in your mind, oftentimes our subconscious is saying that to us, and then we are acting out in these ways. And so our mental construct becomes a prison sometimes because it is so powerful, and it holds us within a certain framework. This is our story. This is who I am, and I'm sticking to it. And in order to maybe have a sense of identity and have a sense of worthiness, and maybe people find worth in their sad story, or find that other people pay attention to them and value them more because they were an abused and abandoned child, or whatever it might be, right? We can latch on to just about anything that gives us what we as humans seek, which is for people to essentially see us and recognize us and accept us into the tribe, right? I mean, in that old tribal sense, it's like you are welcomed in. We want people to know, like, and trust, or go deeper, love, right? Know, love, and trust us, and we will do whatever it takes to gain that recognition from others. And many and oftentimes it can be through negative behaviors or negative things. And so we create those mental constructs to create those circumstances externally that give us what we need to fulfill those feelings that you were just talking about, that we may not even have discovered are there yet. So I think the work goes into first figuring out, what is the mental framework that I'm working in? What are the stories I'm telling myself? What are the beliefs that I have? Because beliefs essentially are just thoughts that have become practiced so much that they become a belief.
Yeah.
But we've practiced that thought over and over again to where we now call it a belief. So we look at those things, we deconstruct them, we actually examine them, and then this takes some work. It doesn't, just happen because we want it to happen. There is some work involved here of this unraveling and of this unveiling and this unlearning and deconstructing process. Once we kind of get through the mental cobwebbing and in this mental prison sometimes that it can be, we then can go deeper into actually exploring those feelings. So not even just identifying them, because the identifying of the feelings is still a mental game. We have identified that we are sad, right? That's our brain saying, you are sad. We need to go into those feelings. And I'm not saying that we spend all this time back in those places of feeling this loss. There are many therapies and healing modalities and work out there that people can help others with, or you could even do yourself if you learn the protocols of where you can move through this stuff pretty quickly, of going back into the feeling and into the trauma and releasing it and allowing that to actually move through you so that you're no longer holding on to it, because it's there and it's doing the damage. We just haven't yet maybe accepted that it's there and doing that work behind the scenes. So once we see it, identify it, and then work with it, oftentimes, even just in 1-2 sessions, if you will, again, depends on what kind of work you're doing and how receptive you are to that feeling work. But I don't honestly believe that we need to spend years and years in therapy talking about our feelings. We can go into them and release the pain of the feeling. It doesn't mean that we are getting rid of feelings. Okay. There's, I think, a lot of therapies out there that would work to kind of release anger. Let's say, like, you get rid of your anger. Anger is not useful to you. It's hurting other people. It's hurting yourself, right? Release that anger. But that anger, just like any emotion, was doing you good. It was there for a purpose. It was helping you in some way. What is it that it was doing for you? And that is a very important key to figure out. What is it that anger, that sadness, that pain deep inside, what was it doing for you? Go ahead.
Do you have rumble strips on the roads in the US?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, I've heard that. So the rumble strips are there to keep you on the course, straight on the road, rather than running into the metal barrier by the side of what you would call the freeway, what we would call the motorway. So the feelings are there. Feelings are there to show you that to show us that our thinking has gone awry. It's gone. We're in danger of going down.
Right, into the ditch. Into those ditches. And those ditches are an interesting metaphor too, because it's a rut, right? And mentally, we create mental ruts, neural pathways that are traveled over and over again to where it creates a rut in our mind. And that's the fastest and quickest way to relief, even though it may create additional pain and may create more strife and problems in your life. It's the quickest and best known path because it's been so worn in. And so a lot of the neuroscientific work that's out there is about creating new neural pathways, new habits, new thoughts, new then therefore beliefs and behaviors by practicing those new things over and over again. That's the mental work. The feeling work is so important though, and it cannot be missed because often we think we can solve all of our problems by thinking them away. And what I've discovered is that those deep and oftentimes dark feelings are still there. Even if we think positively and we do all this manifestation work and we are out here, doing incredible work mentally, our feelings that have not yet been addressed are still there. And they're going to come up and they're going to rear their ugly head in certain circumstances, whether it's, in your car with road rage or with your partner because they trigger you, or, when you've gone through a type of crisis and all of a sudden your perfect, mental construct and what you think you've done to heal and your life being wonderful, all of a sudden just completely falls apart at a crisis moment because you've never dealt with those deeper feelings that live in our body. They live there and they, again, do really wonderful things to protect us at certain times in our lives, but we also need to have what I consider like real actual conversations with our feelings and work with them. Like, why are you there? What do you need? How can I work with you? And then also work at releasing that, the hold that they may have on you.
I came up with something yesterday or the other week. I was thinking about, what is trauma? Right, like in a word that people can actually understand and trauma is a scary thing, right? The idea of trauma, and I thought, well, what is trauma? It's probably about, I don't know, 95, 99% really intense feelings. Yeah, so it's the stuff that I was talking about earlier on, like insecurity or probably anger and fear, and maybe 1 to 5% thoughts. That's what trauma seems like. And the prime wound, again, what did I come up? I came up with this. It's like a toxic cocktail. So I did a little post on social the other week. Trauma is a toxic cocktail of fear, anger, and insecurity. But we are the glass, not the contents. And then there's a little cocktail glass underneath it. Because I found what's been really useful for me is to uncouple from my trauma, uncouple from my feelings, spend more time. I mean, I would use the word consciousness or spirit or awareness, rather than you use the word soul. I'm happy to, I see that I'm treating those as what's the word? Synonyms, words that mean the same thing. So it's in three words and a pair of parentheses. It's I am, open brackets, traumatized, close brackets, full stop. And all the time we're focused in on what's in the brackets. I'm traumatized, I'm tired, I'm angry, I'm insecure, I'm unloved. It's all on the set. It's all on the last word in a 3-word sentence, and we're not focusing on the I am bit, which is the ever-present soul, spirit, consciousness, awareness. We're focusing all our time on what we are aware of, rather than the fact that we are an aware being.
Yes. Yeah. What a beautiful way to put it. And I completely agree. You know, the I am is really the place that I spend time in now, rather than in the examination of, or the filling of, or the losing myself in the whatever that identity is, traumatized, or I am a executive, or I am a student, or I'm a mom, or I am abused, or I am whatever, right? We could put
Or
anything
I
in
am an
there.
adoptee, even.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, those things, and it isn't to take away that we are those things. It's to say that we are so much more than just that. We are the I am, and we're that, right? How do those things live together? How do we experience those things? The I am is so much bigger. It is the wholeness of you as spirit, soul, consciousness, energetic being that had that experience of trauma, is having that experience as a parent, is having that experience as a student, has had that experience of whatever it is. But the wholeness of who you are is so much bigger than that. And it can be easy to get caught up in just life in those brackets, as you put it, right? Just that identity of that thing. And like I said earlier, I feel the more loss we have, the more we cling to that, whatever's in the brackets, whatever that whatever we're identifying ourselves with. And you can almost look at it and go, okay, someone who overly identifies with anything in that bracket, brackets, is it's probably a clear indication of how lost they feel, actually, or how big the void is, right? If
Or
all,
the veil, maybe. The veil, you use the word
or how
veil. So
thick, or how many veils, yeah, still
yeah, many veils.
remain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and again, it isn't about not being proud of being a doctor, let's say. But if that's all you identify, and you make people call you doctor this, and you are only a doctor, and everything you do is about being a doctor, and your whole world is consumed by being a doctor, then that, to me, is over identifying with something in the brackets that is a masking of whatever it is you might be missing out of, and not examining. And the going into the I am is that examination. And it is a lifelong process. And I, like I said earlier, also believe why we're here. I believe we are all here to examine that, and to actually understand ourselves and each other and the human experience more through that examination. But also not just look at it and examine it and pick it all apart, but to examine it so that we can experience true joy, so that we can actually go in and let go of all of these identities, and let go of all of the both positive and negative, right? Traumatized, that's negative, but being academized, right? Or like, going through and like fully identifying with being an academic, that's another thing that is what our society considers positive, but you could be losing yourself in that as much as, and as in a damaging level as you can, things that we consider negative in our society. So it's about, where we exist outside of all of those constructs, who we are as our true nature, and getting back to that. And then experiencing life. It doesn't mean you go live in a cave and meditate all day. You get to then experience the richness of life through the lack of the veils, right? And through this beautiful new set of eyes and a set of experiences where you are not necessarily identifying with and then therefore reacting from that life in the brackets.
Yeah. So to bring it in, you're basically guiding people to what's underneath the veil.
That's right. And helping people through, I have a podcast also called The Everyday Mystic. And so the conversations that I have on that, I hope help people and help guide them. Why I call myself a guide is because I believe this is everybody's own individual journey and path. I can't heal you. I can't fix you. I can't, tell you how to live your life. I can't say, Simon, why aren't you seeing this? And then make you see it, right? None of us can do that for each other. We all need to individually experience our own path and journey of this unfolding. And working with guides, teachers, coaches, anybody who is in this kind of profession, or even just tuning in and listening to podcasts like yours or mine and reading books, taking in new information and different perspectives can help to open us up to a new way of seeing and understanding something that we may have seen or understood in a different way before. But then we as individuals need to alchemize that information. We as individuals take that opportunity and go, okay, well, what does that information mean to me in my life? How, and this is why, maybe you've experienced this before where it's like you read a book 10 years ago and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that book and it wasn't that meaningful. Or maybe you remember one thing from it and then you pick it up again and you're like, oh my God, this thing is like blowing your mind and it's world changing it, right? You're experiencing it at a different time through a different lens. You've had different experiences in between, and we then take in the exact same information, but in a different way. And that's true of any of us, right? Someone listening to this podcast, or I would say, and venture to say that everyone listening to this podcast is going to have a different experience of it, a different understanding and learning and or experience of whatever it is we've talked about. So the work that I do comes through the podcast. I actually wrote that ebook in order to also be a guide for people, and it'll be available on my website very soon. So feel free, to put to go there, and you can download a copy, and then individually, or the work I do more with individuals is through a guided journey program that will help people. Again, it's not prescriptive in you're going to do this, this, and this, and you are going to achieve this, this, and this, because this work is all about and unfolding from wherever you currently are. We're not all starting from or at, none of us are in the same place, really. Not even if we're at the similar parts of our journey, we could identify very similarly with one another. We are all uniquely experiencing our own reality, really.
Yeah. So I sometimes ask this question. I haven't done it for a while, but I'll ask you because you've been so spot on. Have you done it? Does a title come to you for this podcast? Do you get a name? Does a name occur to you in the moment?
Something like how adoptees truly come home or come back to their true home, or
Yeah.
the journey back to your true home.
Yeah.
Yeah, something along those lines. I'm actually writing a book that's more memoir style and covering both my adoptee journey, my birth family search, finding my birth mother, and really the book is about finding myself. So the adoptee journey is a big part of it, but it's about the big wider experiences that I've had. And my subtitle is very similar, because to me it is about, like I was saying earlier, not just an adoptee's own, we don't own this journey. We all have this opportunity to come home to ourselves and to come back to our true nature, and to give up the struggle of what it means to be overly identified with a particular identity or role or experience that we've had, and just get to live in the beauty. I mean, look all around, and this is, I've experienced depression, so I'm not talking about this only from this side of like, okay, it's beautiful out here, guys. Come on, step on out, like, come with me. I invite people to come with me because I've been there. I've been deep in the trenches and in the darkness, deep, deep darkness, in the struggle of addiction, in this place where the world did not look like this. It didn't feel like this. It felt very unsafe. It felt very scary. I was very lost. It was very dark. So all of that being said, it's not just that. The world is not just that. Is it that sometimes? Yes, it's very real and can be that in a very real sense, just as much as this beautiful, seeing life with the light and the beauty and the joy that exists is as real as well. So it's just about, it can be as simple as making a choice to live in one way or another, and then figuring out, how am I going to get there? What am I going to do to get into that place? But I promise you, this other place exists for any of you listening who feel like you are in that darkness and you are deep in that struggle. I promise you there is another side, and that there isn't just that. And there are many, many, many people out there that are supportive and can help. It doesn't mean that they're going to fix you. That's your job. And that is your, I believe once you step into taking the responsibility of that for yourself, that's when it really all starts to work and starts to actually happen for you. So it's like, get out of victimhood, get out of this place of like, my life is shit and this is all there is. And step into the fact that you have true power to change that. And then the work to do the changing, yeah, it's work, but it is so freaking worth it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Corissa. And thank you to listeners. We will speak to you again very soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.